You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
A secure border.
The border is, in fact, secure. The border is closed. The border is secure. The border is secure. The border is closed. We've been unequivocal in that.
On the issue of Afghanistan. And to that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not.
This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia.
Inflation will come down next year. These inflation rises will be transitory, that they will come back down next year.
There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way.
That's just a montage of Democrats lying to you, specifically the president and his people. Lying. The border is secure, yet fentanyl has killed 25 people, at least in Colombia, younger people. The border is secure. Human trafficking, half a million fentanyl pills recovered over the weekend from our secure border. The drawdown in Afghanistan, it's going just fine. And yet he killed a Missouri kid in the Marines. Killed him with his sloppiness in that pullout. Inflation here in Missouri, and this is easy to complain about inflation, but Stephanie uncovered some numbers the other day, specifically numbers for us here in Missouri. Inflation costs for major categories, transportation has more than doubled in the past 2 years. Energy costs more than doubling in the past 2 years. Groceries almost quadrupling since the tragic events of January the 20th, 2021. And this is why I say, even though we're highlighting that's audio from Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, Vice Philosophizer Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, all lying that, if you get the vaccine, you won't get the COVID. The economy is fine. Our pullout in Afghanistan is going fine. Those are all lies. And that's even why on a local level you can't vote for Democrats. That's why for like Boone County presiding commissioner, it's Connie Leopard, because Democrats, that's what they do. They lie, and what they want to do for America just simply is not good. And Stephanie and I have two differing polls for what polls are worth that we're going to run into. But this is why in the 47th Missouri House District, you vote for John Martin. Easy vote. Attorney General Eric Schmidt. 3rd Congressional District, Blaine Luetkemeyer. 4th District, Mark Olford. Treasurer Scott Fitzpatrick is the Republican nominee for auditor. That's a seat currently held by Nicole Galloway. That's who I'd vote for. State Representative Cherie Tolson-Reich in the 44th District. Jen Musgraves in the 50th District. That's a seat currently held by Sarah Walsh, Shimon Jones, Dustin Stanton for Boone County Treasurer. Jason Gibson, Boone County Auditor. By the way, his opponent, he was fired by the city of Columbia. Now this guy's running for an elected position. That's why you vote for Dustin Stanton. You vote for Jason Gibson, I should say, for Boone County Auditor. His opponent has been fired from the city, and I think might even still be involved in some kind of lawsuits. Who else? Do we get everybody? Sam Bushman in Cole County. Dave Griffith. Am I missing anybody, Marsh? I think we got all the Republicans. Yeah. All right. Did I miss anybody, Steph?
Travis Fitzwater.
Travis Fitzwater, by the way, the Jefferson City News Tribune did a piece on him and his opponent, so we've got everybody there. Meanwhile, national polling, how are we looking? The election is 12 days from now. We have our hands on a couple of different pieces of polling this morning.
And this one's hard to believe. Do you believe this,
Which
actually?
one? Are you talking about the
5-point swing.
Well, it's interesting because there's two different polls saying two very different things, but basically they're the same points, and they've both had some dramatic swings. And they're swinging the different way, man. These people, you talk about pineapples and swingers, and these polls are swinging like it's Friday night at Lake of the Ozarks, man.
Well, The Economist in the YouGov poll says that there's been a 5-point swing in just a week, which that alone is really hard to believe. And they said the swing is actually in favor of the Democrats.
And then real clear politics, which I think is pretty solid. I mean, they just take a bunch of different polls and then they do like an average of polls. Mm-hmm. So the Economist YouGov poll has had a pretty significant swing within the span of a week, but the Real Clear Politics average of all the polls, generic. In other words, not specific office, not Senate, not governor, whatever it is, just specifically, do you want Republicans in charge of things or do you want Democrats in charge of things? And I think people have looked at the landscape over the past year and a half, almost going on 2 years, and now the majority of Americans, according to Real Clear Politics average polling, the majority of Americans, they want Republicans in charge. Then, again, for what polls are worth, USA Today headline, exclusive poll, Republican support rises ahead of Election Day, with blank driving voters. Houseworth, you want to take a guess as to what, if we fill in the blank is driving voters?
On the Republican side, that are driving interest in Republicans.
Republican support rises ahead of Election Day with blank, this issue driving voters.
I would say crime or inflation.
Steph, what do you got? What's we fill in the headline here?
I cheated. I already know.
Hannah, what's your guess?
I would guess the economy.
The economy. What about you, Marsh? With inflation driving voters. It's the economy, stupid. So in this poll from USA Today, and that's the headline they're running with this morning, exclusive poll, Republican support rises ahead of Election Day with inflation driving voters. That's a singular issue that affects every single person in America, regardless of income bracket. If you make Stephanie Bell money, you're still affected by it. If you make Branden Rathert money, you're affected by it too. That is an issue that affects every single American. So this poll, USA Today Suffolk University poll, finds angst about President Joe Biden's leadership and the nation's economy. And it's a big swing in that too. Democrats had been leading, but the latest one, Republicans up 4 points.
Yeah, and I saw something on Twitter yesterday specifically related to Missouri, and it comes from Missouri political consultant Greg Keller, and it's reporting, he's saying Missouri absentee ballot request window is basically now closed. We're just in the early voting period, and he said when you compare how many people requested absentee ballots to how many people requested absentee ballots in 2018, that it's looking really bad for Democrats just on a turnout level, right? So it doesn't tell us how many people are voting, but it tells us how many people requested the ballots and from where. And so he's showing, in Berry County, it's up 85%, Butler 64%, Jasper 58%. And these counties that he's listed are pretty Republican counties. And then he's
rural down in the Ozarks, a lot of those.
Yeah, and then he's saying in counties like Boone, we are 5% behind where we were in 18. Jackson, 27% down. St. Louis County, 29%. St. Louis City, 75%. And he said overall, absentee ballot requests are down 60% in Corey Bush's district and 25% in Emmanuel Cleaver's district. So interesting data from right here in Missouri that's showing perhaps a low turnout among Democrat voters.
In obviously, specifically in the Corey Bush district, Trudy Bush Valentine would need a huge turnout there, and obviously that's a very Democratic area. She's going to need a huge turnout there. But the national polls are interesting because with a lot of our listeners, Brandon, they would think it'd be a slam dunk that would be, 80%, but it's very close. So there are a lot of people that even Fetterman right now, in a lot of these polls is still leading, which is surprising to a lot of our listeners. But again, as we talked about yesterday, Pennsylvania is it's a tough state for Republicans to win. It is. Toomey won it twice, but both of those were really close.
Fetterman says he's received $2 million in campaign donations since his stellar performance the other night in that debate.
I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I do support fracking.
Okay.
All right. She said, okay. All right, let's move it forward. Says he's raised $2 million. What was interesting yesterday was trying to see how the national news outlets, he's a real hero, courage. Sure, but he's not a Senate candidate. You can say he's heroic for getting on that stage with his health issues, his inability to think, his inability to lead the people of Pennsylvania, the United States Senate. He's not that. He got up. He did his thing. You'd say it's heroic, but that's about the only thing they've got, and that's kind of falling flat, too. 12 days prior to the election, off the text, 874-9390. Jesus, Brandon, get off the soapbox this morning. You seriously believe the Republicans aren't going to lie to us, too? I think they all lie one extent or another. Nathan, I think the problem D's are facing isn't necessarily that they all lie, but enough people at the upper echelons of that party lie so much anyone affiliated with that party is lumped into that action. It's a great point. And think about this. Not only is it Democrats lying, it is the president. And they're all saying the same thing. The border is secure. My God, look around you, man. It's not secure. You have the president lying to you. The border is secure. You have the Department of the guy who's in charge of your safety, the Democrat Alejandro Mayorkas, lying to you. And the thing that blows me away is there's still people that back this stuff. Wow. Did you hear what happened at Silver Dollar City yesterday?
Oh my
This freaked me out.
Me too. I've been on that thing. It's the Frisco train. It goes around. You got those two guys in the woods, and they do like the little shtick. It's so good. I've seen it 100 times probably. But it turned over.
Apparently, a train's going down the track, Silver Dollar City, a couple of hours to the south of us. Been on the trains. It's been years, but you ride the train around the park, and they do the little plays and stuff. But apparently, the train derailed, is maybe selling it. It fell over on its.
Yeah.
You ever seen a drunk person like at homecoming and they're standing there and then the next minute they're not? They fallen onto their side.
Slow fall. Yeah, that train doesn't go very fast, and it's not like a big train, but it was, it definitely took a tumble.
So last time we had a train derailment, man, it was like 12 hours later. There were attorney offices in Columbia that had big old banners up. Hey, were you in this derailment? Call us. We'll get you some money.
And I will note there is no booze at Silver Dollar City, so I don't think booze was involved.
Just sarsaparilla, right?
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's in the woods, and you can see in there, they were interviewing people, and it sounded almost like a domino thing. They were like, my car was the first one. And so it sounds like one kind of tipped, and then it kind of pulled others with it. And I think several people, I saw their statement, and several people went to the hospital.
Yeah, ideally they're going to be okay. Coming up this morning, this FUSUS system, very unique tool in fighting crime in downtown Columbia. Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones here, 7. Then Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. She is here. She was in Wooldridge yesterday. She's also doing like a marijuana workshop. Want to find out more about that. She's coming up 7:35 this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Meanwhile, we're getting ready to open up the tent, the circus tent that is the daily DC Rundown. What do you have for us this morning?
Well, we've been talking about, are debates really a thing? Are they important? What about endorsements? Where are we at on that?
Interesting take. That's coming up. Daily DC Rundown with
Something remarkable happened after that debate is that we've raised over more than $2 million after that debate.
You believe that? That's John Fetterman saying after that debate the other night. Probably one of the worst debates really in the history of politics, at least in recent memory. One of the worst things that we have ever seen. I think worse than that is people are saying, yes, I want to vote for this guy. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
I mean, was it Republicans giving the guy more money so he could, like, get back in front of people again? I don't know, but some Democrats are raising concerns. Apparently, a former governor in Pennsylvania said, in retrospect, he probably shouldn't have debated. So while he's touting the money, there's a lot of Democrats that his candidacy is causing a lot of anxiety and saying, we've got to recover from, they have a limited time to recover, but they're saying this wasn't very good. Also, this article makes me kind of mad. The AP is saying Election Day is November 8th, but the litigation has, already started and kind of blaming lawyers. And they're saying most of the lawsuits have been filed by Republicans, and it's the most litigation ever before an election. And they're trying to tie it to 2020 and to call us all like election deniers or whatever. But after people cast their vote, the litigation at that point is really difficult. So why wouldn't you, if you're concerned or you have a clarification about what the rules actually are, then it's smarter for everybody to go to court before the election and determine what the rules are exactly before you cast your ballot. So it's criticizing lawyers and saying, oh, there's all this pre-election litigation, but isn't that what we want? We want to know that when we walk into the ballot box, on election day, that we know what the rules are and that our vote's going to be counted and that other people's vote's not going to be counted twice.
A League of Women Voters has you back on this. They filed an amicus brief in a case, and it has to do with voting rights.
Right. So, and newspapers, when you make a big announcement and everyone's like, so what? It's happened a lot lately. A big newspaper group, Alden Global Capital, they've got stuff like the Boston Herald and the Chicago Tribune said, you know what? We are no longer going to issue endorsements for president, governor, and the U.S. Senate. And people are like, okay. Whatever. And I think about endorsements, in our races. And do you remember when the Kansas City Star endorsed Taylor Burks? And I think we actually told him, and he was like, huh? And then he was also kind of like, why? And I don't want that endorsement. And I think maybe can I get unendorsed? And so I just think that's been going away for a long time. But the newspapers are officially off the table for.
They're saying, and it's some of the argument it only hurts us because we're picking sides or nobody pays attention to us. It's like it's just a bad idea. It's like putting John Fetterman on stage in a debate. You just know you shouldn't do it. Newspapers now saying maybe we shouldn't do endorsements for political candidates.
Probably not. I agree. And one candidate that you would not have maybe wanted to endorse, apparently there's a second round of abortion allegations against Herschel Walker. Someone else is coming forward. He's saying this is all a lie. I will not entertain any of it. I also did not kill JFK. Is his response in response to a woman only identified as Jane Doe saying that he paid for her 1993 abortion. That whole race is just a dumpster fire, legitimately.
That's an appropriate explanation.
Okay, and then also the court apparently is still having they're trading some barbs, which is unusual for the Supreme Court. Alito, I guess, was at the Heritage Foundation and said someone crosses an important line calling the court legitimate, and that was kind of directed at another justice. So there's some.
Was it Elena?
Yeah, there's some barbs being traded, and you know what? We still don't know who the leaker was.
Who's the leaker? That's your daily DC rundown here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle. Coming up about 5 minutes from now, a very interesting, unique way for you to help first responders here in Mid-Missouri. Chief Geoff Jones is here at 7:10. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler is here at 7:35.
It is not the government's job to supply welfare housing, welfare everything. It's this, all of a sudden the state does it. The churches don't do it anymore. The privates don't do it anymore. We're going to have just nothing but a town of rental housing everywhere. If we don't come to grips with single family has to be developed. We can have programs for that. Workforce assistance. This isn't workforce housing. This is for lower income housing.
Jefferson City Council First Ward member Jack Deacon several weeks ago at a meeting talking about, I think it was labeled as workforce development housing, and he was the lone person that I recall from the meeting that night. It says, this is low income housing. Put whatever name you want on it. This is low-income housing. But there is a real issue, apparently, for some of the biggest employers in the area. I think of like Unilever, Scholastic, Hitachi. And, hey, we got all these great employees, and we have these jobs, and we like to think we pay all right. People just can't find a place to live. And this is something that came up again this week. Marsh, you see any progress on that? Or is it just people saying, hey, here's the reality of it, or here's some ideas? Yeah. And I wonder, and yeah, you got to have workers, and you got to have places for workers to live. Whose responsibility is that? You're going to take money out of my bank account and put it towards public housing? Should it be these companies? Is there something they could do to get together and say, hey, well, we're hiring these people. Maybe there's something we could do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I was at the housing conference, and one thing that came up was government red tape, because they said, hey, there were a lot of landlords there, and I think two interesting things. They said, the landlords were saying, hey, quit giving us a bad, you're talking about us like we're big bad landlords, but without our money and our investment, we're doing our best to provide as reasonably cost living that we can, but we have an investment. We can't lose money. And at the same time, you heard from some of the community groups, hey, don't stereotype Section 8 folks either. And they said, sometimes Section 8 folks are the best folks to have because they're long-term renters. They make sense. And sometimes I'd rather have a Section 8 renter than some of the other renters that I have. And so we talked a lot about stereotypes, but I think also what you heard was a lot of the companies in Jeff City aren't offering Section 8. And they said, it's just too much of a headache. It's too much red tape. It takes too long. I can't not have a renter for a month because I'm waiting on the government. And there were some solutions. We got to streamline some of these processes, and then, it would allow private individuals to step up and provide more cost-effective housing.
Maybe kind of an anomaly, but when I was a ski guide in Idaho, that's constantly because you're in a tourist town with an incredible cost of living, and I mean incredibly high. That's what I mean when I say incredible. And so even 15 years ago, that's it was a challenge there. Okay, so we're bringing in service industry employees, and you're living in a town where the median price of a home is probably $1.2 million. Where do we put these people that are serving the people with the money? And it was always a company-wide thing. All these companies trying to come up with incentives for people to choose their place to work, more money and all these great benefits. Maybe that's the next thing. We'll give you a place to live. We'll put you up in housing.
Someone mentioned that I think maybe Silver Dollar City is kind of doing the Disney thing and actually building housing for their employees right there because they're struggling with the same thing. Branson's, really expensive.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Pell, producer Hannah, Brian Hausworth. There's John Marsh. My name is Branden Rathert. Coming up 7:10 this morning, Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones. A lot of misinformation out there. We've heard a lot of statements here locally regarding this FUSUS video system. We got to run a lot of this stuff through our Ministry of Truth and what people are saying. Geoff Jones does that 7:10 for us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Some advancement. There was a meeting yesterday, and folks within one group said, yeah, we like this FUSUS. We like this FUSUS system. Chief Geoff Jones chatting with our news partners at ABC 17 about this yesterday.
Having the information that comes from camera footage sooner gives us the ability to look for the car, the person dressed in a certain way more quickly.
It's not a surveillance system. It's the police department saying, hey, we need, if we have your permission, we would like to tap in to your video system to use that. Might help us catch. The one thing I want to ask them about, for example, like Rockbridge High School, even though this was at a high school, but a system like this, that incident the other day where there was some kind of threat at Rockbridge, something that was going on. We still don't know because of poor communication on the part of Columbia Public School District, which is consistent from. There was a story the other night, ABC 17, and they had a parent saying, I would just like to have gotten some more information. They don't communicate. They won't communicate. And the only reason I paid attention to that, because we have had the same on a media level. I had a very spirited text and email exchange several years ago when somebody from the school district said, we always respond. I'm like, boom, here's several examples when you don't. And I've seen what they do to parents. So I thought, even with that thing that happened the other day at Rockbridge, you had a parent telling ABC 17, lack of communication. We know that has been a thing. But I wonder, like, this FUSUS system, let's say it's in operation around schools, too, where the police department has permission to tap. So whenever there's a crime happening, they can go to those cameras in real time and maybe help them catch suspects even quicker. Wonder if that would have done anything at the Rockbridge High School the other day. Chief Geoff Jones, 710. Congresswoman Hartzler, she was Wooldridge yesterday with Governor Mike Parsons. She's here at 7:35 also talking about, it's not a marijuana town hall, but it's kind of like a marijuana information workshop. Congresswoman Hartzler's here at 7:35. And I want to say, while we're talking about Chief Geoff Jones and our appreciation for law enforcement, first responders, Hannah's marrying into somebody who's a first responder, or marrying into a first responder family. Her soon-to-be husband is a volunteer firefighter, so you have an appreciation for first responders.
Oh, for sure.
My sister's a police chief. John Martin, by the way, running for that 47th State House seat currently held by Chuck Basie. He does these events. He's been doing this even before he ever got into politics, by the way. He does these events for police officers, so we appreciate them. So I was excited to find out there is a new way that you can help first responders. There's a website /board, First Responder Support. It's newly formed. I want to bring in Ken Gregory to talk about this real quick. Ken, welcome into the show. We are glad that you are here. So tell us about this newly formed organization, this First Responder Support Organization.
Good morning. Glad to be here. It's First Responder Support. The website is firstrespondersupport.net. You'll find a lot of helpful information there. But our mission statement has four main pillars: to promote goodwill between first responders and the community, promote increased awareness of the realities facing first responders, to provide relief to those who serve our community as first responders, and to provide support to those who serve our community. It's very important, that relationship between the community and our first responders. They live here in the community. They're a part of the community. We want them to feel welcome here. Many of them are from Columbia. They're invested in our community, and when they get off of their shift, off their time, they want to shop here, be here, enjoy the benefits of our community.
And so one of the things, increasing awareness of what first responders do and enhancing community relationships, I would think, especially because there are some neighborhoods in our big neighborhood of mid-Missouri where they don't look too kindly at police, and they've been taught that through the years. They're taught that kind of stuff. So that's a big challenge and a hopeful challenge. That's one of the things you can overcome. And then also, I think, interesting, so let's say you have somebody who's a first responder, and I'm guessing, let's say it's a cop, for example, here in mid-Missouri. Maybe he's having drug issues. Well, he can't go to HR. I'm assuming he's going to lose his job. This is one of the other things the First Responder Support Board could do to help folks. Is there a way our listeners can help this morning? Like, you guys looking for money? You want volunteers? What is it that we can do to help?
Well, all of those. Obviously, we're a nonprofit organization, and it will take finances. The City of Columbia offers some great resources, EAP, Employee Assistance Program. But with any company, as with the city, there are some gaps. There's only so much they can do. We have some good partners in the mental health field, in the substance abuse field, that we can refer to, we can reach out to, and assist not only the first responders but their families with those sorts of issues. You talk about the realities facing first responders, our police and fire and medical personnel, the scenes that they come upon at a moment's notice, sometimes death and destruction, and those images sometimes don't leave you very easily, if they ever leave you. And the lasting effects from that, although may not be immediate, sometimes they are, sometimes maybe down the road, or you may not even realize that it's affecting you and your family the way that it is. So if we can step in and help recognize those things through assisting in training or assisting in counseling, that sort of thing, getting them set up with professionals that can aid in that, we're here for that.
All right. And our guest is Ken Gregory, the newly formed First Responder Support Board website, helping first responders in mid-Missouri, firstrespondersupport.net, firstrespondersupport.net. Ken, we appreciate you taking time out of your day, and we appreciate what you and and everybody is doing to help first responders here in mid-Missouri with your new website, your new organization. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being with us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. Coming up a few minutes from now, when you shouldn't do the do. And did you hear, as a 51-year-old white guy, my favorite. Why are you looking at me funky?
I don't know. I'm listening. What about your 51-year-old white guy?
My favorite thing to talk about is race, and I'm being facetious, obviously. I don't I don't like talking about it, but when the President of the United States tells me that then this is the latest thing that's racist, I just go, wow, because when people talk about playing the race card as a key
Some airlines, if you want 6 more inches between you and the seat in front, you pay more money. But you don't know it until you purchase your ticket. Look, folks, these are junk fees. They're unfair, and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color.
The airline seats are racist. They're hitting black people harder. It was just incredible BS. It's just silly.
And they shouldn't be allowed to charge for more legroom?
Yeah, it's an airplane. That's what they do. It affects me, and I'm not, because I can't, I don't sit in the Stephanie Bell section of the airplanes when I fly.
sit in
I'm
economy.
kidding, I know.
But, I mean, it affects the airline's bottom line, right? If they have to move the seats further apart, then they can't put as many seats on the plane. Those seats should be more expensive. If you want extra legroom, I know plenty of people who are white who are over 6 feet and would prefer the extra legroom. Hell, my husband is shorter, right? And he would prefer a little bit of extra room.
Yeah. It's just not fun being on an airplane. But when he said that, I'm like, come on, man. Really? Now you're saying airline seats? My gosh. And I'm reminded of the time when he was talking about poor kids are just as bright as white kids.
You cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids.
And you can tell the audience of the day, he said, Joe, do you hear what you're do you hear what you're saying here? Do you hear what you're doing? Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, Chief Geoff Jones talking about that FUSUS system. He's going to be joining us 7:10 this morning. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, she was on the side of the Wooldridge fire yesterday, along with Governor Mike Parson. Brian Houseworth spent some time out there yesterday, and want to chat with him. What he saw. From what I've talked to people, they say you get there, and it is just the overwhelming smell of smoke that still lingers in that town. We hope our friends there are okay. Sometimes you shouldn't do the do. A woman in North Carolina, she's upset.
Shouldn't do the what now?
Shouldn't do the do. Mountain Dew, do the do.
Okay. I wasn't sure where we were headed with this.
Do the do. Their campaign slogan that they've used for years. Do the do. And this woman in North Carolina is shooting him in like a residential neighborhood. I don't know, maybe think somewhere off like Apache Flats or something back in that area. You're just in a neighborhood and this woman's in the backyard. I envision spitting, chewing tobacco in a lawn chair and shooting cans of Mountain Dew. And then the story gets better of why she was shooting cans of Mountain Dew.
I'm confused.
Her dad was drinking these, and her dad's like in his 90s.
And so she's like, quit drinking Mountain Dew. And her solution?
Shoot him. It makes sense to me.
It does?
Because it's fun. And I don't know why is it we got to shoot. When we were a kid, you would shoot soda cans.
I've watched my son do it, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the thrill is.
The other thing what she should have done was she should have gotten one of those old school can crushers. My in-laws have that, and my kids will spend an hour putting the can in there and then pulling the thing down and smashing the can into a little. You remember doing that?
Yes.
Yeah. Or just stomping them. That'd be a little bit safer than shooting at them, I guess.
When we were kids, we used to recycle aluminum. We used to use, we'd get the most obnoxious thing, like an anvil.
Try to smash them.
Marsh, you've had the pleasure of crushing cans back in the day.
Of course you do.
And there is something that is
Stephanie
oddly fun about that.
It is.
And I don't know why. There just is. And the sound, look what I have done. Look at what I've created. I've smashed this can. Tomorrow here on the show, we are going to be doing a Feel Good Friday. We wear red to remember everyone deployed. And we say that not to brag on us, but just to encourage other folks to wear red. Pretty cool. And then, of course, tomorrow, 8:35, winners and losers of the week. Coming up 7:10, Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones dispelling myths about this proposed FUSUS system. Another unique tool to help law enforcement. He's here at 8:10, 7:10.
I know that this community will recover, that everyone will step in and help each other. I stand ready to help do anything that I can as your federal representative.
Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler chatted with KRCG yesterday, her and Governor Mike Parson touring Wooldridge, kind of giving some hope to the folks there. Governor Parson saying yesterday, he says, a bunch of different things that we have to do to get you some state aid. He said, frankly, he said, may not qualify for federal aid, but we are working on that. As a matter of fact, Branden Rathert was out there, spent substantial time out there yesterday, anxious to hear kind of what he saw. Because you go there and you see it, and it's way different than what you're seeing on the TV stations and what the stories you're hearing or what you're seeing on the Facebooks. You're there, and it's just a very, very different thing.
And you said the smell was what people were commenting on. In fact, I was walking yesterday down on Capitol Avenue where one of those dilapidated buildings burned, and that was month ago or more, and you could still just, the stench of the burned property was awful. I can't imagine if it was more than one property.
Brian Hausworth spent some time there yesterday in Wooldridge. What kind of, so we were talking about some of, okay, here's what we're seeing on TV, doesn't do it justice. I keep talking about like the smell and the people walking around town. Some of your big takeaways.
Yeah, Brandon, I think you summed it up, and I'm being respectful here when I say this, but just devastation. And my clothes, I talked to the governor, I talked to so many people, Congresswoman Hartzler. My clothes were so full of smoke that I had to come right back to when I got done there to take a shower. It was horrible, and I can only imagine the people that are in that area, the heartbreak, and that's the term that I heard over and over again from the governor, from Congresswoman Hartzler. Some of them don't have insurance, and basically what we learned from the governor yesterday is that because of federal disaster declaration rules, they're not going to meet the threshold for that. And Congressman Jason Smith's tried to get that law changed. Basically, you have to have X amount of dollars overall in damage to help the folks. So basically, the governor and Congresswoman Hartzler agrees they won't meet the threshold. That said, the state is helping them in any way they can. And there is a bucket at the Missouri River Tire Cenex dealer. I was in there yesterday, and people were donating a lot of cash. That's a place you could donate. You can donate to the Red Cross. But just there's a lot of hope, but a lot of heartbreak and a lot of sadness. It's just very hard to see what was down there. Words can't describe it.
Yeah, you're there. It's different. Those folks have, they lost a lot of stuff. Welcome to the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, Brian Hausworth, John Marsh, producer Hannah, Stephanie Pell hanging out with us. Wanted to bring in the chief of police in Columbia. There's a unique tool that can help law enforcement, can help them solve crime. But unfortunately, this FUSUS system, and I hate to even use the word surveillance because we're not installing new surveillance stuff. It's nothing like that. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, so we've got to run some of these things through our ministry of truth and see what's up. Bring in Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones. Chief Jones, welcome to the show. So last night, Columbia's Downtown Leadership Council, they have voted in favor of this, and we want to talk about what the next step is. But let me ask you this. As I understand it, you go to businesses. Do we have permission to see what you're seeing on your video systems? If they agree, then you can utilize this stuff to help you get a jump on some crimes. That's the way I understand it. What's one or two of the biggest pieces of misinformation that you're hearing about this?
Probably the biggest is that we can use facial recognition, or that the camera system tracks biometrics like race or facial recognition, and that's just simply not true. The system will follow things like backpacks, hats, bicycles, a car, a certain color of car, but it doesn't track those other things. Second piece of information is that we can tap into residential cameras, and that's also inaccurate. Residential cameras would be on a registry system that's completely voluntary. So if something happens in your neighborhood and you're registered and say, hey, we have a camera, and if something happens here, let us know, and we'll look and decide if we want to share the video with you. And it sends a secure link over an email, and the person can either share the video or not. So those are probably the two biggest pieces, but it's all permission-based. It has different layers of permission. from just registering to giving live access to those business cameras. So there's a lot of information out there that just simply isn't correct.
Well, and I want to get to some of that because this came up in the city council meeting a couple of weeks ago.
This has been used in other cities, and has that shown less crime? And what kind of crime is it stopping? Because, again, we have an equity issue. So if you have petty things, then you can do other means to stop that from happening.
So, again, and I don't hold with that at all. It's an equity issue, and this is just going to bust more, is what I hear. She didn't say what I hear. This is just a way to bust more black people. And I don't think that's the case. It's gives you some sight into downtown, what businesses are seeing, allows you to tap into their system. Shooting, Friday night, homecoming weekend. Let's say we had FUSUS operational then. How could have Friday night potentially have played out?
It's coulda, woulda, shoulda, but if we had the camera system up and monitored that night, it is likely that we would have seen descriptions more quickly. We would have had descriptions of people and the direction they went more quickly. Officers were there within 40 seconds. They were just around the corner. So had we known which direction they went, we would have looked for evidence in that direction more quickly. One of the officers got information about what direction some people went, but not all. And when the officers came, they came deep. We sent a lot of resources there. And instead of talking to witnesses, looking for evidence, looking for cars involved, people involved, they were going business to business, building to building, looking for cameras and video. This would have sped up that process considerably. We're still looking at video in that case. I also want to clarify, in that case, it was misreported by one of the other outlets, and I'm not going to call anybody out specifically, but they said that we don't have leads in the case, and that's just simply not true either. We are following leads. We're still working the case. Our detectives and officers have had a lot of success. I'm very proud of what they have done, but video plays a big part in that.
Chief, we appreciate your time, and our colleague Randy Tobler, his son-in-law actually performed a tourniquet on one of the victims in that triple shooting, and he just described it as chaos in that scene. It was just very his mother, according to Randy Tobler, who was down there too. The mother of one of the shooting victims was hysterical that her son had been shot, and they were very thankful to your officers for being there. This is scheduled to come up for a vote at the November, I believe, 16th meeting at the City Council. You've written a 4-page report. I've reported on it extensively, and it's worth mentioning again, FUSUS does not identify people based on race. It does not use facial recognition. Are you optimistic the council will approve it in November?
I'm optimistic that there's support, and I'm hopeful that council will review the people who are supporting it, see that we've addressed concerns through policy and procedure, and then move forward. If I could throw a couple dates out real quick.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So November 1st, we're having an interested parties meeting so that people can learn about the system, ask questions of the vendor. We're going to have hopefully a person coming from Orlando who uses the system, a captain from that agency, so that people can ask questions. That's in our HR training room off of Broadway from 6 to 8. And then on the 2nd, we're doing the same meeting at our North Precinct, the Molly Thomas Bowden Community Policing Center from 6 to 8. And then on the 9th, we'll be reviewing the policy based on the comments that we've gotten from the other two meetings and trying to, really screw that down. So I hope people are there to participate, ask questions, and contribute feedback.
Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I've really tried to stay out of politics, and Brandon and I have talked about that before. I think people need to have an educated decision made. They need to educate themselves, not just based on propaganda, but what ancillary costs are to any drug, including alcohol, when it comes to things like workers' compensation, insurance rates, the availability of counseling, substance abuse counseling, work-related injuries. All of those things need to be considered while we're considering legalizing a substance. And that's just me personally. I think that we need to be informed before we vote. But as far as my personal opinion as to whether it should pass or not, I'm going to save that and let others be educated and decide.
You're going to save that for November the 8th when you walk in and vote, I'm guessing. Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones hanging out with us.
Back to the FUSUS question for just a minute. Where else is this system used? Is it used in other communities in Missouri?
I'm not sure about Missouri. If you go on their website, there's about 130 communities that use it. Newport, Virginia uses it. I know that because we're looking at doing a site visit there. Oaklawn, Illinois, Gary, Indiana, Oakland. They're really all over the place. It's pretty widely used, and it's used differently by different agencies. But they've really taken time to consider privacy and have something that is customizable to the owner of the camera's wishes, and that's what we're really excited about.
I get frustrated. I think everybody knows how much of a fan of law enforcement and all first responders that we are here on the show. And so when I see these people that, about once a year they get signs and they walk through downtown, stop the crime, solve the crimes, do this, and here we have a wonderful tool which can really give our law enforcement some leverage in helping to do what those people march about once a year, and yet it's a lot of those same neighborhoods. No, it does this. It's not equitable. And here we have a way that we can help with those issues, and we have a lot of this misinformation out there. Columbia Police Chief Geoff Jones, anything else that you would like to add to be of service to citizens in the city of Columbia?
Just make sure you're following our Twitter and Facebook feeds. I'm not a big social media person, but we've really been trying to be responsive to the community and put out information so that you, Brandon, have stuff to report as well as others, and that we're being more transparent and just getting information out there. So please stay tuned. We have people doing very good work, and we want people to know what's being done and how we're trying to keep the community safe.
Chief Geoff Jones, Columbia Police Department. Guy, we're kindred spirits. I'm not a big fan of the social media either. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's something that's very important that he said there at the very end, particularly because there are people that say, well, the police need to be more transparent. They always have granted us interviews all the time. But for people that aren't reporters, and even me, if it comes in the middle of the night, I encourage people to look at their Facebook and their Twitter page because they are putting up videos from all the, and we've had some horrible things, and those sound bites can be used in newscasts, but more importantly for information as well. And he also had something very significant there. I don't know if you caught what he said, Brandon. They are following up on leads in that triple shooting. That's brand new information, and that's a big deal because that was a horrific scene at that site. I've seen some of the pictures. It was horrible.
And timing could not have been much worse either with all the parents and all the alumni here in town. Coming up, 7:25-ish, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What do you have for us this morning, Hannah?
Well, one of my favorite trashy love TV shows has a new season. No, Love is Blind. They've released some statistics about their success rate, and it's not pretty.
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:27.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Now, I've talked about this TV show before, Brandon, but it's called Love is Blind. It is a Netflix series, and the whole thing is basically a big social experiment to see, is love truly blind? So while the couples are interacting with each other, they have to talk to each other in what they call pods, and they can't see each other. So you kind of schedule your dates and, make a connection with someone without seeing what they look like.
Marsh, this sounds like the dating game back in the 70s, except we're not in pods. We're just kind of hidden from view. Yeah.
So they don't get to actually see each other in person until they're engaged, which is crazy. And it's one of those shows that happens in like a matter of a week or two. So it's not exactly setting them up for the best success anyways. But season 3 is in the process of being released, and somebody has come out with statistics on the success rate of the couples on this show.
Yes.
So in the first 2 seasons, out of 12 couples that got engaged, 4 of them ended up getting married, and 2 of them announced this year that they're actually getting divorced. So when you factor in all of the contestants between the previous 2 seasons, including the ones that didn't end up getting engaged, their success rate is about 7%.
Isn't 50% divorce rate
That's what
probably about standard though?
Yeah, like half of them half marriages end in failure, or end in divorce, I should say.
I compared it to the Bachelor franchise, which is another trashy relationship type TV show. It looks like, so it says 2/3 of the seasons out of The Bachelor and Bachelorette actually end in proposals. And The Bachelorette has a better success rate at 30% of a long-term marriage versus The Bachelor at 11%.
What do you consider to be a long-term marriage?
I think they're considering long-term a year or more.
Okay.
The franchise hasn't been around that long.
Coming up 5 minutes from now, one of our local Congress people, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. She was in Wooldridge yesterday surveying the damage from there. We're going to ask her what's happening in the hallways in Washington, D.C. And also, she has a big event coming up regarding marijuana.
There's a lot of people that got displaced in this. We'll be working, doing everything we can within the state powers to be able to help with that. But I think it's also the reality of the situation is there's a lot of things that when you look at federal disaster or state disaster, there's different thresholds you got to meet. And frankly, on the federal side, we're probably not going to meet it.
Governor Mike Parson yesterday, Wooldridge, he was there with Congresswoman, 4th District Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who's joining us here on the show right now. Congresswoman, I want to ask, I've talked to people, the biggest thing I noticed you go through there, and the smell from that wildfire over the weekend, just overwhelming. What was kind of the one or two things that really stuck out to you as you were in Wooldridge yesterday?
Well, just the totality of the destruction, unlike a tornado or even a flood where you might be able to salvage some picture, some family heirloom when things dry out or picking through the rubble, there is no rubble. I mean, it's total. And so those lifelong heirlooms, those family photos, all those things are gone. And we're just thankful that no life was taken. That certainly would have been the most heartbreaking thing that could have happened. So that was encouraging. But just as you mentioned, the pungent odor, the smell that just permeates the air, and the total devastation was just breathtaking. And to see even some of the it was like a trailer that had some equipment or something on it that had been burned, but the metal had actually melted and ran down on the ground for about 6 feet. This molten aluminum, or I believe it was, and just to see how hot it really got, and to talk to the first responders, the firefighters, the citizens of the town, who said that the flames and the embers were going as high as the highest tree you could think of, and how it just filled the air, make it glowing, and how they just kept putting out fires. They would sit there on their RTVs with their shovels, and they would just be looking around or driving around, and as soon as they saw some grass smoking in someone's yard, they would rush over there and pound it out. And it was just a fight for over 36 hours. These individuals did not sleep. They just kept going to save their town as much as they could, and I just couldn't be prouder of their efforts, and just thankful that no lives were lost, as well as part of the town was saved.
First responders, I think, from over 50 different jurisdictions joined us and helped us out here in mid-Missouri in that Wooldridge fire over the weekend. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler joins us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah. My name is Branden Rathert. You have a big event coming up, but as it relates to marijuana. But I want to start here. One of my favorite things, every time you and we saw each other last week at the airport. Stephanie Bell, she was there. Houseworth was there. You and the governor was there, but every time I get an opportunity to chat with you, I always want to know, what's the scuttlebutt in Washington, D.C.? Like, what are you hearing in the hallways? Not what we're seeing on Fox. I know you're in town now. But what is the talk? Like, if you're hanging out with other lawmakers in Washington, D.C., and let's say it's the night after the Fetterman-Hawes debate, I mean, what are the Democrats, elected Democrats in D.C., what are they saying about, number one, Democrats' chances, number two, about Fetterman, just really the whole Democrat, that is the whole Democrat Party, which is a dumpster fire right now. What are you guys saying in Washington, D.C. about what they have done to our country?
Oh, it is total destruction. I mean, speaking of the fire in Wooldridge, you feel like this is what the Democrats have done to our own country, and that things were working. The economy, for the most part, before the pandemic, was historic amounts of employment, and wages were high, and people were safe, and we had a strong military, and the border was secure, and we were energy independent and actually exporting our energy to other countries. And then Joe Biden and the Democrats took over, and it seems like they have a checklist of every day how to ruin America, and they're going down that checklist. And where we are now is just absolutely devastating, with the economy being at a 40-year inflation rate, and the average family having to spend $8,000 more this year just to pay the same basket of goods that they did last year, and their wages aren't keeping up. People are going backwards. They're running up their credit cards. and they can't afford to fill their tank. The drugs are pouring into our community, and due to the open border, and we've got a very dangerous place on the world stage with after what happened in Afghanistan with Putin emboldened and Xi Jinping now basically making him an emperor for life. And it is a serious place. People know it. That's why I think people are going to get out in record numbers in a couple of weeks. They're going to fire Democrats and hire Republicans all over this country and to try to stop this train wreck. And it's going to be playing defense for the next 2 years until we can make a change in the White House. But at least we can stop some of this. And I think the Democrats are scared. They just hope the day gets here as quick as possible. And people can be fooled that if they keep pouring more money into races and telling lies, that people will believe it, that John Fetterman is not incapacitated. He's a great guy, has great policies, but we know that is not the case.
Yeah. And this matters, and I keep likening it back to even on a local level. And, yeah, we've been paying attention to what's happening in the Senate races in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Arizona, gubernatorial races across the nation, which are looking pretty good for the Republicans right now. But one of the points that I have tried to drive home, my opinion is, for folks here in mid-Missouri, we need to keep that in mind, what Democrats are doing. It is that mindset. It is that way of thinking. It is the wokeness. MSNBC impaneled independent and regretful Biden voters. They said one of their biggest issues, education. As it relates to education, their biggest issue on MSNBC, wokeness in schools. They want their kids to just learn. They don't want the woke BS. I'm not going to call you a dude if you ain't a dude. I'm not calling you a chick if you ain't I don't care how you want. I want to be, Congresswoman, I want to be identified as the boss on this show. But you know what? Hannah and Stephanie won't call me the boss. You know why? Because I'm not the boss. I'm not the boss, and they don't call me the boss. But anyhow, so all these people are saying we don't want this anymore, the wokeness. But to bring that home to Missouri politics on a county-wide level, that's why I think we should be voting for people like Sam Bushman in Cole County as the presiding commissioner, not Carla Steck. That and Sam's done a great job. Same thing in Boone County, Connie Leopard over Kip Kendrick. I personally like Kip Kendrick. We cannot be voting for Democrats. That's just my aside there. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Well, it would be devastating for our state and for the families. You know, I used to be a high school teacher and worked with young people who are getting involved in drug addiction. I've worked with families who've lost their children to heroin overdoses. Everyone tells me that marijuana is a gateway drug, and this amendment would just unleash all kinds of harm on our state. We can see what is happening in other states who have legalized it. In Colorado, you have more traffic deaths as a result, more ER visits, more violent crime, more moms testing positive and having low birth weight babies, more youth that are using, even though it's technically not legal. It makes it more available, more emergency visits for babies who are children who've ingested the edibles and things, and more addiction, more psychosis, more violence, more drug use. Everything that is negative to a society, it has unleashed on that state. Why would we welcome it to our state? We have record overdose deaths in our country last year, and everyone's concerned about fentanyl. Why would we legalize it here and unleash this? This amendment, by the way, which I am reading through, everybody understands, it's 39 pages, 50,000 words. I spent over 3 hours yesterday on the road going over to visit Woolridge and back, trying to read through it all. I had some interruptions, but still, I didn't get it through it all yet. And there is so much in here. It is written by the marijuana industry to profit the marijuana industry at the expense of Missouri families. We have got to stop this right here, right now, and not let it in our state.
So it sounds like, because the biggest thing with Amendment 3 that we're seeing with people is, and I think the majority of Americans, Congresswoman, and the majority of people here are morally okay with recreational marijuana. I think the distaste for Amendment 3 is there's enough other pieces of junk in there that people aren't on it. And I'll say, and you and I, we always know where we stand, and I don't agree with everything you say, and you don't agree with everything I say. But I, as somebody who used to use marijuana before I got clean and sober 794 days ago, was people would say marijuana, it's a gateway drug. Well, it was for me as a kid, and I haven't smoked marijuana in years, by the way, but as a kid, marijuana was a gateway drug because of the places I had to go to get it. It wasn't just because I'm smoking marijuana and all of a sudden now I want to do heroin or morphine. It wasn't like that. It was because of the places I had to go to illegally buy marijuana. I think making recreational marijuana legal, I think it will actually take away and detract from that. It's not a gateway. Now that I can go into a storefront at a shopping center on Missouri Boulevard and get my legalized weed, I don't have to go to weird houses. But that's just my take. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler here on Wake Up Midmo.
Hey, Branden, thank you so much. Congresswoman, we appreciate you joining us. I want to go back to Wooldridge because you and I spent time yesterday walking up and down what's left of a street. Most of it's gone. There is nothing left of the cars. The combines are gone. The houses are gone. The church is in bad shape. The post office looks like it even has some smoke damage nearby. It was much, much worse than I expected going in there, and I had seen the television footage. You walked down the street with me. Your thoughts on the devastation we saw yesterday on that road all around that community?
It was just total devastation, and there was nothing left. And that's the cruelty of a fire, in that it doesn't leave a thing. And those families, I just feel so bad for them. And many of them weren't there yesterday, and I asked the Red Cross individuals, where are they? And they said, well, they don't know. They've found different places. Some have moved in with families. Some have just found maybe temporary housing. They really don't know. And so if there's someone listening out there today who is one of those people, please call my office. I just want to see what I can do personally and through my office to help connect you with some help and some support. Because these individuals are going to need that to rebuild their lives. They're going to need everything from clothing to furniture to finances, just helping them get the basic necessities. And I know people in this area would rally around them if there was a GoFundMe page or some avenue to help them. And so I hope they will reach out to my office and do that. But I was also heartened yesterday by the community spirit that was there and the individuals who stepped forward, who ran to the fire, who did everything they could to save as much of the town as they could, and who just pulled together and worked together. And I know this community will rebuild and will continue to thrive. And I just hope that these families who were displaced will get to be a part of it.
Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, by the way, doing a Marijuana Impact Summit. Marijuana Impact Summit. That's coming up Tuesday, less than a week from now. Tuesday, November the 1st from 10 to noon. This is going to be at the Missouri State High School Activities Association. Where can we go real quick to get more info on the Marijuana Impact Summit that you're doing, Congresswoman?
That's a good question. I assume it's on my website.
Okay. You sound like me now. I don't know. That's Stephanie. Ask Hannah. We'll make sure folks get the info. And by the way, Congresswoman Hartzler said if you're in the Wooldridge area, you need some help, call our office line 442-9311. 442-9311. If there's anything that we could do for you to be of service to the citizens here in mid-Missouri, thank you. By the way, Lauren with your office does great work.
Absolutely. We've got a wonderful team. I'm so proud of them and grateful for them. And we just want to do all we can to help the people of this area. We're honored to serve you.
Congresswoman Hartzler. This morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio KWOS. Coming up. Halloween
he can have a normal off season. I spoke with him this morning. He's excited. He's energized, and obviously, you think about how we look at our roster next year. You're always going to be needing pitching, and so having him come back is certainly helpful for all of us.
That's the head honcho for the St. Louis Cardinals, John Mozeliak, talking about Adam Wainwright has decided he is going to come back for one more season, which is cool. We all, you know how we get. Why do we keep him? Because he's been here for the past 18 years. That's just the way we've always done it. Adam Wainwright is maybe time, but we love Adam Wainwright. But apparently he's going to stay, despite the fact that Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina are going to be gone. Does this do anything for you, Marsh? You go, oh yeah, you're just like, oh well, you're yeah. So some folks excited about that Adam Wainwright. You know how long he's been with the Cardinals? He's been here for a while. Was it 2006 first World Series he appeared in with the St. Louis Cardinals? I don't think he was here yet in 2004. I could be wrong, but he's been with us for a long, long time. Halloween costumes getting banned by retailers. If a retailer wants to say we're not going to sell this as a retailer, you should have that right. But apparently one of the big ones it's getting flack is the Jeffrey Dahmer inspired outfit. He's got a show. Is it on the Netflix that apparently he's doing really well right now?
Yes, it's on the Netflix.
On the Netflix?
That's what she said.
Oh, on the Netflix.
Yeah.
And also, it's just an orange jumpsuit and some glasses. But retailers, we're not going to sell that.
See, that one kind of surprises me. Normally the costumes that get yanked are for like cultural reasons.
Yeah.
This is just a character. I mean, I know he's a real dude, but
it's just an orange jumpsuit and old glasses. You could be a bunch of you'd be a bunch of different people that are in prison. What I wonder is the cultural thing. I actually tried watching this about a year ago when the Squid Games became a big thing on Netflix. I don't understand why this was so popular, but some outlets decided not to sell Squid Game outfits.
Can we ban scary clowns, please?
It's on the list.
Oh, good.
Coming up, a few minutes. So when Eric Schmidt becomes our next senator, who might replace him as our attorney general? How's that all going to work out? We're covering that coming up at 8:10.
Being a realtor, I could be planning on going in and voting on election day, and somebody wants to go see my listing. Not going to say no. I've got to go in and do my job. Hopefully that'll kind of lessen the load and spread it out a little bit more so that it's not as hectic.
That's poll work. We're talking about early voting with KOMU. We've got 12 days until the election, and we've uncovered some numbers from kind of across the state. What's happening with voting thus far?
Yeah, this comes from Greg Keller, who's a Missouri political consultant on Twitter, and he said Missouri absentee ballot request window for 2022 has closed. Now, of course, you can go in person, no excuse absentee currently, but the window for requesting is closed. If we compare this year's requests to the last midterm, the 2018 election, he said the numbers are really bad for Democrats. And what he's looking at is, so comparing the number of ballots 2018 to today, and he's saying in counties that are typically Republican, so Berry County's up 85%, Butler 64%, Jasper 58%, Lincoln 73%, that we're seeing huge increases in counties that you would suspect would have a lot of Republicans requesting absentee ballots. And then in counties that lean more Democrat, like Boone, down 5%, Jackson, which is Kansas City, down 27%, St. Louis City, down 75%. And so he said absentee ballot requests are down 60% in Cori Bush's district compared to 2018. So he's saying this is a bad sign for Democrat turnout.
And more reasons it's looking good for Republicans. One of the new polls, for what polling is worth, this morning shows a 5-point swing on a generic ballot for Republicans in the election 12 days from now. So it wasn't a specific office. It's not Senate. It's not gubernatorial races. It's just as a whole, who do you want in charge of things? USA Today polling, Suffolk University polling, saying, it's Republicans right now. So I guess if you're a Republican, that's a good thing. And this stuff in the White House, by the way, they continue to say, no, those laws, and the numbers in Georgia, by the way, continue to be gangbusters. Remember, Jim Crow 2.0, this is so racist, the world is coming to an end. And what are voting numbers in Georgia doing right now?
Their turnout is insane. It was insane in the last cycle, too.
And remember, because the lies they kept telling us was that, it is going to squash voter turnout. People won't turn out and vote. And it simply is a point of fact that is not happening. So as a reporter, you go to the White House, much like I imagine John Marsh or Brian Houseworth would be doing, and saying, excuse me, Ms. KJP, but you said this was Jim Crow 2.0 laws. You said it. The president said it. Every single talking head on the national news outlets, save Fox News, were saying this is Jim Crow 2.0. But these numbers are not lying. Were you guys wrong? That's what I'm guessing, Brian, that's what you would ask if you were in the White House.
Yes.
Marsh, that's what you would ask, I guess, if you're in that. So here's how that went.
Was President Biden wrong with his assessment of Georgia's voting law, or does he stand by that Jim Crow comparison?
So, as you know, I got to be careful. I cannot get into politics from here, so won't comment specifically on that race or on the elections or the data that's coming out of Georgia. But the president has been very clear that based on the big lie, there have been a host.
Can't do political stuff, but, the big lie. Let me work that in there really quick. She didn't. They're still saying, well, it's squashing voting. No, it's not. But it's like you're saying the border is secure. Well, how come we have 25 kids at the very least in Boone County that have died of fentanyl overdoses? This fentanyl, it comes from Mexico after it's been shipped from China. You tell me the border is secure, and now you're telling me that these Georgia voting laws are quashing voter turnout in Georgia, and it's not.
And also keep in mind, Major League Baseball took an All-Star game out of that city, and the people that wanted it say that it would have really helped a lot of the African American businesses in that area. That was certainly a concern. Her soundbite is interesting. She is correct in that she can't, from that podium, talk about the race, Warnock and Walker, or Kemp and Abrams. She can't and did not. But I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, but she's been doing it.
But here's the thing. I'm not a lawyer,
Yeah.
but her and the president both have said that was a Jim Crow law, and they've both criticized the voter ID law. So, and I think the question from Ducey was appropriate. It was absolutely appropriate. Do you stand by what you say right now? And in that clip, that I didn't hear all of it, but in that clip, she didn't answer really the question that he asked her. I mean, it is, do you stand by it? One other quick note: the Warnock Walker race. I looked at a Hill story this morning. Take polls for what they're worth, but Warnock, according to this poll, leads Walker by 2. But yet I've seen several others polls where Kemp in the gubernatorial race has a comfortable lead over Stacey Abrams. If those polls are accurate, who knows if they are, that would indicate that there are some people in Georgia who would vote for Kemp for governor who would switch over to vote for the Reverend Warnock in the Senate race, which would be interesting. If that is accurate, we will find out, of course. And I've also seen a lot of speculation that Senate race in Georgia could end up in a runoff in December.
If neither one of them has 50% plus one, they'll do another runoff. And we have some. So Eric Schmidt, our Attorney General, very likely to win the Senate race coming up 12 days from now. I think Mark Alford will win that 4th Congressional District seat. Blaine Lukemeyer, Sam Bushman, Cole County Presiding Commissioner, Connie Leopard would be the vote in Boone County for the Boone County Commissioner. John Martin, Cherie Olson-Reich, Jim Musgraves, Dustin Stanton, who else? Jason Gibson. By the way, it'll be the first time Boone County will have had a new auditor in 30 years. 30 years. Jason Gibson is the vote there. By the way, his opponent, he was fired from the city of Columbia. I mean, this guy is just no good at all. Kyle Ryman, I think, was the guy. You might remember he was in the news. I can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year. Because he said some things that city management didn't take too kindly. Said it in a city council meeting. Was fired, and I think was suing them, maybe suing our former city manager John Glasscock. That's the Democrat opponent for an auditor in Boone County. That's why you got to vote Jason Gibson. Whole slew of John Martin in the 47th district. And before we get on to some of these names who might be coming, or some talk out there about who would be Missouri's next attorney general, which has been a pretty nice, cushy spot for the last two holders, hadn't it? Both of our former, our current attorney general, very likely to move up into the Senate, and our previous attorney general went to the Senate, right?
Well, and if you go back even further in history, not all that far, Jack Danforth was the attorney general. And he was when Jack Danforth was elected the Attorney General in 1968. It was unheard of for a Republican to win statewide. I believe it had been 50 years. It was absolutely unheard of, and he ended up winning a U.S. Senate race in 1976. So that was a big one that ended up jumping from AG to the next post. John Ashcroft was Attorney General. Of course, he ended up later being U.S. Attorney General. He later became governor. Jay Nixon, 4 terms as Attorney General, later became governor. And then the last couple, Josh Hawley, wasn't in the Attorney General's seat that long, about a year. I mean, I was trying to think, it was a year, maybe a year and 11 months in that position. And then Eric Schmidt, if he wins, and he is the favorite to win, would be the next one. If the governor would have to appoint someone to take his position if that were to take place.
And Recorder of Deeds in Boone County, Shimon Jones. Carrie Lake, she's running for governor, Arizona. She's a recovering TV person like Mark Alford.
Her polling numbers are looking really good.
She is doing solid, and she's saying the right things too.
You want to tell me that a bunch of football teams owned by billionaires are okay with fentanyl pouring across our border at a record level, killing our young people? Number one killer right now is fentanyl, 18 to 45. It's killing a generation of people. If the NFL is okay with that, then they got to do some soul searching. I don't think the NFL is that stupid.
Question she was being asked, because she says, hey, listen, if I'm elected governor, first thing I'm doing is I'm declaring a state of emergency at our border. And they said, well, what if in the NFL the Super Bowl is there coming up, 4 months from now? 4 months from now. Super Bowl's in Arizona. Remember, they pulled the Super Bowl back in 1990 because Arizona didn't have a Martin Luther King holiday
at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the NFL said, well, we're not going to do our Super Bowl here until you get one of those holidays. And they got a holiday. They've had Super Bowls. But now they're saying, well, what if you do declare a state of emergency? Because people wrongly think, well, if you're against illegal immigration, you're a racist. It's like Joe Biden said yesterday, airplane seats are racist. He really said that. I'm not making that up. You can't make this stuff up. And she is saying if the NFL owners, these billionaire owners, are more concerned, if they're not concerned about the fentanyl that's coming into the state, it's killing local people here in mid-Missouri, well, then screw them. Let them cancel the Super Bowl. They're not going to do that. 4 months prior to a Super Bowl, you just don't move the Super Bowl. It's easier to move an all-star baseball game.
That happened.
Yeah, that happened in Georgia because it's racist. It's wrong. It's just incredible. So looking ahead, then Eric Schmidt, 12 days from now in the election, wins. He goes on to the Senate. What's the scuttlebutt on who our next attorney general? Because I'm thinking if your name's in that buzz, and by the way, Stephanie Bell, for real, Scott Fawn, Missouri Times did an article, and Stephanie Bell's name was in that list. She didn't want to take it because she didn't want to take a pay cut.
No, I have not made any comments about the race. No, the Post-Dispatch did an article yesterday. It mentioned several people, including Andrew Bailey, who's the current general counsel for the governor, Tim Garrison, Columbia's own Kurt Schaefer. And so mentioned a bunch of people, and they said, I think it was Missouri Scout who submitted an open records request and said, hey, give us the documents about, what's going on behind the scenes as far as the AG's race. What we did learn, I guess, or the appointment, the governor's spokesperson did say he plans to interview 5 people about the appointment, and then that they will release the records, I think, in January, which would be after the appointment. But, you have to review the documents and take some time.
And Kurt Schaefer, of course, he used to be a local state senator, ran unsuccessfully for attorney general in the Republican primary, lost to Josh Hawley, so I hadn't seen him for a while. I know Gary Nolan hosts the Gary Nolan Show weekdays, 9 o'clock here on the radio station. Him and Kurt Schaefer had been working on something to get rid of the personal property tax on vehicles here in Missouri. And I couldn't do enough for those guys because that's just the most, to this day, blows me away. And you don't... Unless you move to another state where you don't have to pay taxes on this thing because I already own it, and you have to just keep paying taxes because you have it. It's crazy. But anyway, that's the last time we really heard, I think, of Kurt Schaefer. He's doing his private practice, but him and Gary Nolan, along with some other folks working on stuff. 2 weeks ago, Jennifer Bukowski was filling in for Gary Nolan, and Kurt Schaefer was here in the building, which has been interesting.
Yeah, he runs a law practice in Jefferson City, talented attorney, and is busy. But definitely, I think, I believe is interested and certainly qualified.
And look at all the folks that Mike Parson, in his years as governor, he moved up into a position that he was not elected into. And then
I haven't seen any official statistics, and I don't know if this is in the Guinness Book of World Records, but number of statewide appointments, he has to be winning, right? I mean, the bizarre nature of the last round of appointments, where we had a moment in time where only one of our sitting elected officials was elected. It was Ashcroft, was elected into which the position that they served. Everyone else got there in a different way. I mean, that is insane. Now he gets 2 more. It has to be a record, I would think. Who's counting? Who has the stat?
Let's check it. Stats from homecoming from over the weekend, but these are different stats.
Yeah, our business news is
Good morning. It's 8:27, time for the Morning Bell. Business news got a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you, and I'm loving the twist today. It's a good one.
We're keeping it local today, but before I get into homecoming stats, I will say for business folks, the Columbia New Terminal opened yesterday, and they shot confetti and did a big thing. So
Water cannon for the airplane came out of Chicago, first flight, and I'm hoping they told the people on the airplane, by the way, this flight is kind of a big deal. First one into the new terminal. There were several hundred people here last Wednesday celebrating. So when you get on, just so you know, they're going to be shooting water, spraying you with the hoses and stuff.
I like it. Well, we have the official homecoming stats from Shakespeare's Pizza. And we've talked about what's that one thing that you have that's like Columbia centric, and everyone has a Shakespeare's cup. They said that 1,538 cups were taken home after homecoming. They sold 2,178 pizzas. That's a lot.
That's impressive. That's
pizzas.
Interesting. So 2,200 pizzas over homecoming weekend.
They said 7 people called for pickups and went to the wrong store. Not surprised. It might be also associated with 11 people left their tabs open at the bar.
Really?
5 people left their tiger ears or tails. So if you're missing your tiger ear or your tail, it could be at Shakespeare.
And if you're trying to sneak booze into Faroe Field, you need those tiger tails. That's what we've heard. Uber driver turned us on to this a couple of years ago. He said the tiger tails. The women, they take the cotton out of the tails and put airline bottles in them. I don't know if it's true or not.
Well, they said the number of shots of Jameson, somehow we lost track. The longest wait was an hour. That's pretty decent. And some, people think, 2,000 pizzas, that's, awesome. And being in business for yourself is really sexy. Not so sexy. Money spent on plumbers, $350. All those people have to go to the restroom somewhere. So yeah, that probably was not as fun, but yeah, the stats are posted on their Facebook page. They've got some other fun stuff on there. Apparently people use fake names when ordering your pizza.
Yep.
So they said times Chase Daniel was called out for pizza, 10. Times Chase Daniel actually ordered a pizza, 0.
Have you ever done that? Like whether you're going to like Caldi's Coffee and they ask for your name, so they write it on the cup. And what's your name? Oliver. What's your last name? Close off.
Oh no.
Oliver Close Off? Is this your pizza? Oliver Close Off?
Terrible.
I wonder if people still fall for that.
I think more businesses should do that. I think this is awesome. The post is viral, but it's interesting to see how homecoming affects our very own community.
I love it. It's the Morning Bell business news, little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can provide for you. Coming up next few minutes from now here on the show. Man, we got all kinds of stuff. Maybe the listener mailbag. A lot of questions there. Maybe we'll do that like 5 minutes from now. Leftovers before we get into the Gary Nolan Show.
A lot of it is communication and transparency, and it's not just Columbia. It's a statewide problem, and there's a lot of schools that are just not listening to the parents.
State Rep Cherie Tolson-Rice, and I do appreciate the fact and it's not just Columbia, because everybody knows about the problems they've had with Columbia. Cherie Tolson-Rice chatting with our news partners, ABC 17, local state rep. She is running for re-election. And I paid attention to what she had to say there for a couple of reasons. Number one, what she is saying regarding lack of transparency on the part of Columbia School District is, in my opinion, accurate. As a matter of fact, I've had discussions with somebody from the Columbia Public School Board and saying, hey, you don't communicate with it. Yes, I do. I've responded every time, and within a matter of minutes had exchanged texts and emails. No, see, here's some stuff I've sent you you've never responded to. So you're not being as communicative as you think you are. But there was a parent the other day, and this was after the scare. Did we ever find out what did happen at Rockbridge High School? Because we know we had, a BB gun in Jefferson at one of the Jefferson City schools, John? Or like an airsoft gun or something? And then there was another issue last week, and then Rockbridge this week. What happened there?
What happened is they're being very vague right now to protect the investigation, but there was a person who called in to the authorities and reported that they believed that someone had a gun, perhaps a weapon. And the CPD could not, at the time, the school resource folks and the school security could not locate the student. This is according to Columbia Police. So they sent out of abundance of caution, a large police presence. There was a lot of police there. There were also state troopers, state park rangers. They found the student, determined there was no threat, there was no gun. But that's essentially what happened. Basically, someone was under the impression that they had a weapon over there. They did not, but they appreciate the person calling in, but that's essentially what happened.
By the way, I'm thinking that FUSUS video system, if it were through other parts of town, not just downtown, that may have been helpful in determining. Oh, yeah, Chief Geoff Jones from the told us it would have been helpful.
Yes.
By the way, at FUSUS, last night there was a downtown leadership group. They voted in favor of that. Doesn't mean it's a done deal. Still got to go city council in November.
November 16th.
But I thought it was interesting. I paid attention to what State Rep Cherie Tolson-Rice said. She said, need to be transparent, communicate better. This parent talking with ABC 17 a couple of days ago after this stuff happened at Rockbridge, it's the same thing.
Ask one of them what's going on, and he's like, well, we're looking for a kid that we're not even sure if he's still here. A lot of cops were pulling into the main entrance arm. I asked him, is it safe for me to take my kid home? And he's like, if I was you, I will take my kid home. Walking to the scene, see a lot of cops outside of the school, seeing cops with guns on their hands, and seeing a lot of kids running around, freaking out, crying and shaking. That's scary. As a parent, I would like the school to be more transparent with parents and students to let them know what was going on.
So now you have a parent, you have a state rep. Now you have a parent, and by the way, and the parents will tell you this all the time. If you ever chat with parents of Columbia Public School students, it is a serious, serious issue. So now within a span of 24 hours, you have a state rep saying, and it's not just the Columbia Public School District, but since that is the reputation that they currently have right now, she needs to highlight it's not just Columbia Public School District. Then you have a parent saying, yes, I wish school would be more communicative. I personally have had issues and numerous issues for parents all across the district.
Yeah, it's a tough issue, and I know I saw the story that Channel 17 did with that particular parent, and the parent was concerned because she felt like she was scared, obviously. I think it's worth emphasizing, and the police sent that response out of abundance of caution. They thanked the partnership there, but the police released statements. We didn't get much from CPS on that this week. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Most of the time we do, but a lot of times they'll just send messages directly to the parents. But in this case, this lady wanted more, this parent wanted more information.
I mean, the number of school emails I get a day, if
so
I
you
can
you get plenty of communication.
Yeah, if I can get 14 emails a day about everything from the most mundane, awful.
Yeah.
Really.
Stuff I don't need to know
Then
about
make sure
that.
I know about the
Yeah.
really important stuff. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we haven't had to deal with that issue at Southern Boone. But during COVID, I feel like they were very transparent about what was happening, what the protocols were. Even if I disagreed, I knew about it. And so specifically with school safety, I think that should be, if we're communicating anything, it should be about how we're keeping our kids safe and educating them, of course.
And Stephanie, you're absolutely right. But I would say this as someone who used to work at the assignment desk at a TV station and agree with everything you said there. To what other people might think is important, not important as it is, and then they'll call the TV station and want somebody to come out and do a story. So some school districts will err on the side of caution and just send message because and they just want to keep them informed because inevitably it's something that they may not think. It might be a book fair. I mean, it could be anything. They just would rather go ahead and get the information out. And there are a number of parents that just do want to get every piece of information. So it's a difficult situation to balance.
Yeah, and I think especially now with Columbia Public School parents, because again, the Columbia Public School District, and not all the teachers, there's some very fine people that are working in these buildings, but as a whole, Columbia Public School District has a reputation that they have correctly earned. They've earned that reputation. So now anything that happens, whether it's going on from 2 years ago or 2 days ago, you still see there's a common theme. It's communicate. It's like being in a relationship. And I'm the last one to be giving relationship advice.
Yes.
I remember the first time with the first wife when I went to marriage counseling. One of the things they had you do, seriously, number one, they would make you sit on each other's laps to try to make you love each other.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was a technique this guy used all the time. Now, sit on each other's laps and talk about how much you dislike each other. And so she would sit on your lap. But you had to, one of the first things you had to do, you had to say, like, nice things, and I'll never forget. And by the way, and both of my wives, incredible women. They really, really were. Problem?
They married you.
Yeah. This guy. I was the common denominator. But the counselor was saying, well, say something positive about my wife. Andrea was her name. I still send her Mother's Day cards. She's an incredible mom, great human being, married to a super nice guy, farm, white picket fence, like the real deal Americana. Anyhow, so she's sitting on my lap, and the marriage counselor is like, now what is it that you compliment her on something? And I didn't know what to say, even though there were plenty of things to compliment this lovely creature, plenty of things to compliment her about. I said, she communicates a lot. And it was probably the one time we laughed in her marriage counseling because she turns around. Remember, she's sitting on my lap. She turns around. She says, I communicate very well. You're saying I talk a lot, don't you? It's like my aggressive travel schedule that Stephanie Bell has. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Houseworth Marsh, producer Hannah, Stephanie Bell. I'm Branden Rathert.
Letters.
All right, let's open up the mailbag. We don't get any letters.
So many letters.
Hacks.
A whole bunch of
Facebook
letters.
messages.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
874-9390. 874-9390. Looking at the mailbag here before we move on to the next thing. TJ via text. If you homeschool your child, you'll never have to worry about these kinds of things. And it's right, Gary Nolan, who's a show following Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He's been a big proponent of homeschooling for a long time. And by the way, there are some great stories. There's even an organization in Mid-Missouri, and I'm going to get the exact name wrong, but was chatting with somebody. There's a specifically, it's black parents that are coming together and saying, hey, we can homeschool our kids. And it's kind of a network of parents who have done this because I'm guessing there's a large number of parents that want to homeschool. I'm guessing there's even a larger number that simply can't. I know people, well, you can make it work. Yeah, but then there's also something called reality. But this group, and I wished I knew the name, it's a group of parents that have said, you know what, I felt the same way you did. I was scared and think, no, I can't stay home and homeschool my kids. I got to work. We got to have 2 jobs. We got to do this. I don't know anything about teaching. What am I supposed to? And they've done it. They found a way. And now this group, they're sharing their experience with other parents saying, you can do this.
Yeah, and I think during COVID they called them like teaching pods. But yeah, getting together with different parents and maybe, you focus on one subject and the other parent focuses on another subject. But these homeschool groups or pods or conglomerates or clubs, they've existed for a long time, but there's been a huge increase, especially, after COVID, people learning, hey, we can do this too.
Anything else? You found anything else interesting in the mailbag? We have had a couple of text story that the Missourian KOMU has apparently white supremacist flyers found at the Mizzou campus. And looking at some of the pictures, if you drive down like West Boulevard in Columbia, you see Black Lives Matter signs all over the place. And that's fine. Nobody freaks out. One of the signs that's being found on campus at Mizzou says White Lives Matter. People are freaking out. That I don't understand. Did you? Yeah. Another sign. So if I saw a sign like, let's say, like on West Boulevard in Columbia, it says it's okay to be black, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But you put up a sign like we're finding on the campus of Mizzou, it's okay to be white. White supremacist. Now, wait a minute. Black Lives Matter, that's cool. White Lives Matter, white supremacy. Nobody has failed to explain that one yet. Coming up, so we've got several texts on that. Some of the things happening in the mailbag this morning. Coming up, before we get into the Gary Nolan show, we'll do some leftovers. Open up the fridge. There's a lot of leftovers today.
There are.
Yeah, not even just encores, but like sweet, delicious desserts. We'll open up the fridges to leftovers. Coming up 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, some of the things we didn't get time to get to during the show today. Leftovers. It's where we all open up our little, we all have our own personal little refrigerators here in the studio. John's is a little bit bigger than ours because he drinks more coffee than the rest of us. But we all have our own little refrigerators here in the studio, and whatever we don't use, we open up the fridge at the end of the show.
Brian Hansen always raids my fridge.
Brian Hansen, the star of the Gary Nolan Show.
I can't keep nothing good in there.
Weekdays from 9 to noon here on the radio station. And then Tobler. You know what's cool about the Tobler Show? He's here weekday afternoons, and I'll tell you one of the things that I most thoroughly enjoy, and I started to kind of get it about this station. People rely on us for, like, local things that are happening, political stuff, how these things affect us, was during the special session and, like, these various lawmakers, after they wrapped up for the day in Jefferson, just calling in to the Randy Tobler Show. Mm-hmm. Well, this happened and that happened. That's the power of live local radio. Steph, you got anything interesting in your fridge this morning?
The Columbia Daily Tribune is reporting that there were more than 250 no excuse absentee ballots voted in Boone County on the first day. Brianna Lennon was interviewed. She said there was a line. People are excited. She said, now don't get her wrong, that it doesn't necessarily mean like a higher turnout. It's people that might have regularly voted on Election Day but decided to show up early, but people are taking advantage of the new law.
How about that? That's let's see, we already mentioned new terminal got its first official flight yesterday, and they doused the plane. Fire engines out there dousing the plane with fire hoses, which is pretty cool. I'm excited to when do you get to sample that?
When what?
The new terminal.
Oh, maybe in December.
Maybe in December.
Yeah.
Marsh, you got anything for leftovers this morning? Consortium.
Oh.
Wow. And so we were this close to calling you Agent Marsh. So you were going to be in the CIA. Really? But you... Wow. I could see it, man. You in the black suit, earpiece, Ray-Bans. So what year was this? They said, nope, you don't have they said you don't have the right skin color. Huh.
Do you have people in your life now that you're like, you're totally lying about your real job? And there are people in my life that I'm like, I think you're not telling the truth about what you really do for work.
Yeah.
No, but there are people that I'm like, what was that? There was a show. Was the
Did you see when
Americans
Stephanie pulled in this morning, Marsh? You see her new plates, personalized plates, MOAG, Mo. That's pretty nice.
Right.
It's not true.
Sheesh, y'all. Fake news. This. That's probably true. This is not a lie, and I didn't even know this was still a thing. Did you see these Pokemon people?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Pokemon Go is that weird app on your phone that you can play a game, but it's kind of
like... It was really hot like 4 years ago.
Apparently people are still playing. And there was a dad and a son. The dad is 75, son 35. Apparently there was a long-running virtual feud between two Pokemon Go teams. And the dad and the son are charged with assault. They met in person and had a brawl.
They met underneath the lamp pole 3 o'clock after school. And dad's 75 years old.
Over Pokemon.
My gosh, if I'm 75 years old, number one, and playing video games, and number two, wanting to fight a dude at Douglas Park because he's got these Pokemon things. I got my Pikachu. Just go ahead and cremate me right then and there. Spread my ashes over the Sawtooth Mountains in Stanley, Idaho. Hannah, you got anything over there in your fridge?
Just a real quick mention. Yesterday, Daryl Brooks, who is the Guy who drove his SUV into a Waukesha Christmas parade, killed 6 people, and injured like 60 plus people. He was sentenced yesterday and found guilty on like 76 charges and is going to do life in prison most likely.
Also, Elon Musk. Looks like him and Twitter,
We'll have to have a full update on that tomorrow.
we'll do that. Gary Nolan Show is next. See ya.
Bye.